So today we're going to rain on the Brexiteers parade because recently they've been all a flutter and all a nutter butter about being, we got a trade deal with Japan, ain't it wonderful? Except actually no, not really. If you actually look at what we're getting, it's actually worse than the current one we have with when we're in the EU. So, as we said many times before, we ain't going to get a better trade deal. In fact, Japan and many other countries who were said we will get these amazing trade deals from have all come forward and all said, you're not going to get as good trade deal as when you were with the EU. Now, we warned of this. We told you this would happen. Except the Brexiteers came out and said, don't worry, they're just fake news. Britain is really this super powerful trading nation that's been shackled by the EU. And of course, Brexit supporters just continued to drink the Kool-Aid and just didn't listen to what the other countries were saying. So today, please share this video with someone who is a Brexit supporter who has recently been celebrating this wondrous deal with Japan that we apparently now have. Allow me to sort of rain on your parade. Now you may think this is coming from a Remainer. No. This article that we are going to go through today is coming from the Japanese Times. Now this was written in October of last year. And it's still relevant today. And the title of the article is, as UK eyes post-Brexit trade deal with Japan, its hand may not be as strong as it thinks. With the UK looking to secure its economic future and seize the purported benefits of Brexit, London has been ramping up its negotiating capacity and making overtures to trade partners. And Japan is one of them. Late last month, the British Trade Minister Liz Truss visited Tokyo to discuss a possible trade deal with Foreign Minister Toshima Motegi. I think that's how you say it. Although formal negotiations are prohibited, while the UK remains a member of the European Union, there was a slight contradiction, however. The UK effectively already has a trade deal with Japan. The EU-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement, which came into force in February and removes tariffs covering over 97% of goods, and the EU either immediately or gradually over several years, affecting industries such as agri-food, pharmaceuticals and autos. It also includes provisions on services, including in finance, transport and commercial sectors. Its arrival saw London hail a $3 billion boost to the UK economy in the long run. Depending on how the Brexit saga pans out, British firms could still reap some of the benefits. Under the agreement reached by former Prime Minister Theresa May, the UK would continue to be treated as an EU member state for the resulting transition period, which we are currently about to end. But should a no-deal Brexit become a reality, which it's very much looking like that is going to be the reality, the UK would fall out of the European agreement. Although London has signed some continuity agreements mirroring the terms of EU trade deals, such as with South Korea, the UK is pursuing a new agreement with Japan. And by the way, these continuity deals are contingent on trade deals being negotiated. So just because we've got a continuity agreement doesn't mean these deals are automatically going to roll over. Because the South Koreans, come January, like all these other countries, are going to come knocking and going, time to get negotiating. Anyway, we want to have an ambitious, comprehensive agreement with Japan that covers many modern industries. For example, artificial intelligence, financial services, and that helps build the links between our two economies, said Truss after a meeting with Mogatai. I think that's how you say it, Mogatai. Tokyo had reportedly resisted attempts to replicate the European partner agreements, believing it is in a position to extract better terms from London than it already has. Truss's visit also saw the launch of a public consultation in reaction to the proposed trade deal, which will run until the 4th of November. The Trade Minister reiterated London's interest in joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, a massive 11-member trade deal that Japan helped spearhead, which is now called the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the CPTPP. That might be the one with too many P's, to be honest. Any trade deal still needs to be formally negotiated and ratified and implemented, and British firms potentially face a lengthy period outside of the agreement or any equivalent. And the general consensus is that it is still too soon to say what benefits the EPA is actually having. Experts cite the losses of the deal with Japan as one of the main downsides of a no-deal Brexit. It is more a question of the potential we lose, said Tom Keane, the EU Exit and International Trade Advisor at the National Farmers Union. That loss of potential becomes the more important than we consider than if we are less competitive on a European market, because tariffs that they would impose for production than any other market access, even if it's small, is useful. According to Keane, falling out of the EPA also risks undermining the UK's push to increase exports, namely the lifting of the ban on British beef expected to bring a 75 million windfall over 5 years. And with British firms possibly facing much less favourable trade compared to the EU competitors, they could slowly find themselves being displaced in trade with Japan. This could also be a gradual shift in supply with the UK, as it gets undercut by similar European producers, said Millith Crowley, an economist at the Cambridge University specialising in international trade. Such developments would be ironic, given that the UK was one of the main driving forces behind Europe's agreement with Japan. So, in the long run, it doesn't matter, because even if Britain does negotiate a trade deal with Japan, it is going to get pushed out by Europeans because their deal that they have is better than the one we can sign as a separate country. Again, something that was purported as a benefit of Brexit, once again showing that it is complete hogwash. And before you start saying this is fake news, this is a Japanese newspaper reporting this. They've got no skin in the game when it comes to Brexit. So, faced with these potential impacts, speed will be the key. During talks at the Group 7 summit in France in August, both Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his British counterpart Boris Johnson expressed a commitment to sharing a deal quickly after Brexit. However, that's not going to happen. A further introduction of the priority of the UK gives such a deal can be drawn from a number of ministers who have visited Japan since the 2016 referendum, with a visit by Truss, who arrived off the back of stops in Australia and New Zealand for similar talks, it being just the latest. Her predecessor, Liam Fox, visited the 3 times during his tenure, and May arrived in 2017 to meet with Abe, and Johnson, meanwhile, has made his own appearance in Tokyo that same year while he was foreign minister. But in order to help Brexit live up to its billing as restoring autonomy and sovereignty, thereby enabling the UK to secure better trade deals, London will have to achieve its aim of securing an agreement that goes above and beyond the EPA. Its capacity to do that, however, will depend on the strength of the UK's negotiating hand, and not everyone is convinced that it is that strong. Crowley compares the UK's approach of pursuing bilateral deals post-Brexit to that of South Korea, which also favours such agreements, but with the crucial difference that Seoul arrived at negotiations with high tariffs in place and a lot of market access to offer. The UK, conversely, already offers relatively low tariffs under WTO terms that would stand to gain more from a multilateral trade agreement such as the European Single Market or the TPP, which would allow integration into regional supply chains. The fact that they're going for bilateral must mean that they think they can get a lot in terms of market access, maybe in the service sector. But then the question is, what would they offer the bilateral partner in order to get all that great service market access, said Crowley. And unlike Korea, they don't have a lot to offer in terms of reductions in tariffs. It's a little tricky to think where the strategic gains are for them. And there you have it. An article written, in October last year, genuinely not that too long ago, almost coming up to a year, almost. Not a lot has changed. And let's just reiterate that last part, because I think that really does seal the deal. We've already had years and years of low tariffs, so we gain nothing from bilateral. We gain more from multilateral. Now, why would Japan and all of these countries allow us into the TPP? First of all, as I've said, all these countries have access to the Pacific Ocean. We do not have access to the Pacific Ocean. We are not going to suddenly up sticks and sail, and Britain just sail around the globe and end up, in the Pacific. It's not going to happen. And even if we did join the TPP, it's going to not benefit us because we're not in that region. Not only that, but as you said there, the one that Europe currently has with Japan is far more favourable. We're leaving it. And, as was said there, being in the single market would be far more favourable to us. And once again, we arrive at that point. What strategic gains do we actually get? We already have low tariffs, so we're not actually lowering tariffs. So what are we actually going to give in return for a deal? Comes back to that whole thing again of Brexiteers vastly overstating just how good the UK's hand is. And of course, no doubt you've seen the wonderful flag waving of all the Brexiteers saying, oh my god, benefit of Brexit. Not when you look into it, my friends. Not when you look into it at all.